We are continuing to talk about some of the disorders that are described in the chapter, and one of them is OCD, also known as obsessive compulsive disorder. This is persistent and repetitive thoughts, obsessions, actions, which are compulsions, or both. Occurs when obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors persistently interfere with everyday life and they cause distress. It is more common among teens and young adults than older people. So, an example of obsessive compulsive disorder would be, for example, before you take a test, you always have to hit the eraser part of the pencil 5 times on the desk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you take the test. Or anytime you're going to do homework, you have to use your pen or pencil and you have to hit the desk 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or anytime you go through a doorway, you have to touch the door frame twice, like pat it twice. 1, 2. That will give you good luck. These little habits, these little rituals, which is really what they are examples of OCD because you feel like it's going to affect the outcome. You feel like it's going to affect what happens to you. And by participating in these little practices or rituals, it will influence your day. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Twin studies reveal that OCD has a strong genetic basis. Interesting. Now, another type of disorder is narcissistic personality disorder. Long-term pattern of exaggerated feelings of self-importance, a need for admiration, and lack of empathy towards others. An extreme example, here we have a picture of Hitler, but I mean, lots of individuals do suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. And here we have a serial killer, and his name was Ted Bundy, very charming, charismatic, but did suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. Kanye West, he is a talented musician, however, his opinion of himself is exaggerated. And former president here, Donald Trump. And it would be safe to say that most individuals that are in politics probably have some form of narcissistic personality disorder. It may, in some individuals, it is very extreme, and in others may be not so evident. But I could see that being the case for those that are in high-profile politics. Now, another disorder you might have heard of is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. These are haunting memories, nightmares, social withdrawal, jumpy anxiety, numbness of feeling, and or insomnia, lingering for weeks or more, 4 weeks minimum, after a traumatic experience. It is mostly associated with military veterans, but really anyone can have PTSD for any number of things. Survivors of accidents, disasters, and violent and sexual assaults. So really anyone that goes through something that is extremely traumatic. And I've even heard examples of people that have lived in houses that they claim were haunted. Whether they were or were not is up for debate. But the fact that they do have PTSD, the PTSD is real. What actually happened in that home, who knows? But it could be any number of things that specific individual found to be a traumatic experience. Women are at a higher risk, 1 in 10, than men, because that's 1 in 20, of developing this disorder following a traumatic event. And most men and women display an impressive survivor resiliency. They're able to get past it, or live through it, but they're going to live with it. Now we have major depressive disorder. This is a disorder in which a person experiences 2 or more weeks of prolonged depression. It does not go away. Depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. Symptoms present themselves in the absence of drugs or another medical condition. Many individuals could take a mood stabilizer, Wellbutrin or Booze Bar, and when the medication stops, they begin to feel the results of not taking the medication. Phobias are more common, but depression is the number one reason people seek mental health services. In the United States, 7.6 experience moderate or severe depression. So many people usually have to self-diagnose and decide, do they need to see a psychiatrist so they can get medication, or a psychologist and talk through their problems. Worldwide, 3.9 men and 7.2 women have a depressive episode. The interesting thing about diagnosing major depressive disorder, and this is according to the DSM-5, classifies major depressive disorder as the presence of at least 5 of the following symptoms over a 2-week period. So here we have several, but if you have 5 of these for over 2 weeks, then the chances of having major depressive disorder are highly likely. And you can read these on your own, but it is interesting. A minimum of 5, and many times it's more, if not all of the following. Now we have bipolar disorder. Alternates between the hopelessness and the lethargy of depression and the overexcited state of mania. Formerly, it was called manic depressive disorder. Today, it is referred to as bipolar. And you may have people use this term and throw this word around like, oh, he's bipolar, she's bipolar, what's wrong with you, are you bipolar? People are very kind of loosey-goosey with the term. But let's talk about the mania component. The mania is a hyperactive, wildly optimistic state in which dangerously poor judgment is common, and they get into this manic state of almost feeling invincible, and therefore not making the smartest decisions. Mild mania fuels creativity, strikes more often among those who rely on emotional expression and vivid imagery. Much less common than major depressive disorder, but often more dysfunctional. Americans twice as likely as people elsewhere to be diagnosed with this disorder. And there you have some descriptions of what we're talking about. It is new to the DSM-5, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. So keep these in mind, as things are always added and removed to the DSM every time a new manual is released. Now, some of you may be familiar with someone who hurts themselves, or in the past hurt themselves. Non-suicidal self-injury, or cutters, people that cut themselves, or cutting. Could be burning, hitting, inserting objects under the nails or skin, and self-administered tattooing. But generally speaking, by and large, we're referring to cutting. Now, when we're talking about people that cut themselves, how could this happen, or why does it happen? People engage in non-suicidal self-injury to get relief from intense negative thoughts through the distraction of pain. They ask for help and gain attention. They relieve guilt by self-punishment. Or they get others to change their negative behavior like bullying or criticism by cutting or hurting themselves. Or they're trying to fit in with a peer group. So although very traumatic, very painful, non-suicidal self-injury is very common. And now you know the official term for it and why it happens. Be familiar with everything that is highlighted in yellow. Make sure you're familiar with all of the terms. Get comfortable with all of the terms in yellow. Anything that is white is additional information. Now we're going to refer to one of the last disorders, schizophrenia. A disorder characterized by delusions, hallucinations, inappropriate emotional expression. Many people that are committing crimes where they are mass murderers, like in the subway or in a public school, it is often discovered that many of these people do suffer from schizophrenia. The word itself means split, schizo, mind, phrenia. Schizophrenia is the chief example of psychotic disorder, which is marked by irrationality, distorted perceptions, and lost contact with reality. Now, with treatment and a supportive environment, over 40% of people with schizophrenia will have periods of a year or more with a normal life, but generally speaking, 1 in 7 of those diagnosed will make a complete and enduring recovery. And so 1 in 7 is a very small percentage. Schizophrenia, which means split mind. Here's some additional information. When it comes to schizophrenia, what patterns of perceiving, thinking, and feeling characterize schizophrenia? Some of the positive symptoms and presence of inappropriate behavior. Now, when I say positive, I don't want you to think, I'm talking about good. It just means it's additional, an additional symptom. Presence of inappropriate behavior, negative symptoms, absence of appropriate behavior. You don't know how to act appropriately. Disturbed perceptions, hallucinations, seeing, feeling, tasting, even smelling things that exist only in the mind. Disorganized thinking and speech, delusions, false beliefs. May have paranoid tendencies. And then we have word salad, which means senseless speech and a breakdown in selective attention. Some of the patterns in schizophrenia you'll find right here. And I hope you learned a little bit more about schizophrenia, a word that is thrown around in pop culture and used a lot, but not many people know the very specifics of what schizophrenia is.